There's also ketamine, as we talked about earlier, but ketamine isn't a psychedelic, it's a
Hmm.
dissociative. And ketamine is one of the ones, when we talked earlier, what does it look like to have industry versus community? Ketamine is one of the ones that's been pushed really hard by industry. It very much wants to be accepted as part of this movement. The reasons are pretty apparent. The first is that it's synthesized, it's a man-made chemical. And the second is that they already have a continuum of care built out with ketamine clinics all over the United States to deliver it as a product. The worry here is the ethical implications. I know somebody that went for a ketamine infusion, and they were basically treated like the next McDonald's
Wow.
hamburger on the line. There was no preparation. There was a medical screening for contraindicators. But after that, they were put in basically a fluorescent white light room with a red chair by themselves, and they were encouraged to put in some headphones. And then they were left alone for 45 minutes. And then they came back in and said, "Are you about done? We have somebody else coming in."
Wow.
Now, holy crap, man. I can't even begin to understand how, firstly, even though you can have access to that ecstatic state to some extent, it seems to be a bit altered because, again, there's a distinct separation of your personality.
Right.
But moreover, if it is indeed a psychedelic journey, man, how absolutely inappropriate to not provide a continuum of care that actually supports that growth.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly monumental shift potentially in perspective, and we're going to deliver it capitalist style under white lights. I don't think that's the right way to do it. And that's my personal belief. I understand that's against a lot of the people that maybe would have me as a
Sure, sure.
speaker. But the truth of the matter is, we have lives on the line, and it's way too important to not treat it as important.
Yeah. To whoever's involved in ketamine assisted therapy, don't do it like that.
Maybe I should clarify my position on ketamine too, because ketamine is an incredibly powerful tool in the toolbox, and if administered in conjunction with a traumatic event, can actually work as a prophylactic. Like, you actually are less likely to have, for example, PTSD if while on the battlefield you were treated with
I see.
ketamine due to its dissociative properties. But that being said, just like most of the responses from the VA where ketamine was quickly greenlit thanks to large contributions from Johnson and Johnson, um, ketamine, it needs to be seen as the crutch that it is. And a crutch serves a purpose. A crutch is there to help you get stronger so that you can eventually not need the crutch. That should be the mentality behind it, not this is your crutch you use
Right.
forever. The continuum of care offered from the VA right now takes the latter argument to the extreme. And so what it seems like they're offering now for veterans, and we didn't get a choice in this, unlike my program that really cares about the quality and content of the programming itself. The veterans as a group weren't really given a voice in the rollout of this
I
ketamine.
see.
And so what they're trying to do is give the handful of pills and then every 3 months have a ketamine infusion tacked on. So everybody in that chain is getting an immense amount of money, something like $4,000 per infusion. I've seen it quoted up to
Wow.
$7,000 on top of the already ridiculous handful of pills. Neither of these with any plan for cessation. That's not a solution. That's a band-aid. And we're bleeding to death under these band-aids.
It's not therapy. It's not, there's no therapeutic element to it at all.
For my program, if somebody were to come to me and be actively suicidal, it would be incredibly appropriate to advise that person, if I were a medical professional, which I'm not, to advise that person that a good stopgap is ketamine. It can show that for about 80% of people, for the next 2 to 3 months, you're going to be stable. You're going to have a new connection. The programming at Veterans of War, the first phase of that programming, education and preparation, is 2 months long. That's an incredibly effective band-aid for the exact amount of time I
Hmm.
needed. So it certainly has value, but we need to be in a place where we can critically assess where these things should be applied, where these new medicines should find their homes in that toolbox for recovery.